Hello, dear friends. With big honor, I would like to introduce you to our guest, the most kind, the most wise, the most loved spiritual leader of our time, Bhakti Vijnana Goswami. Bhakti Vijnana Goswami, the first question will be probably, how did it all started for you? How did you get to this spiritual path where you brought up in the faith? But as I heard and as I'm aware that you have academic background, you were a chemist.
Yeah, I was born and brought up in a completely atheistic family. My parents were atheists, they were scientists. My grandparents were atheists, they were also scientists. And I was programmed in a particular way. And I remember when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I was preaching against religion to my grandmother, who used to go to a church, and I said, "You're completely off. You are outdated. You know, you can't do this." So she was not influenced by my preaching, but I remember with a lot of shame that I was doing this. So, and but still, nevertheless, despite of this upbringing and despite of this programming, which was very, systematic in the former Soviet Union. I was born in former Soviet Union in Tashkent. Despite of this, I remember myself also praying to some unknown entity in the minute of desperation or some need. This prayerful mood was also there, which is natural for every soul, because we are insecure in this world, and when we need security, we tend to invoke the higher power. So, and then I went with my scientific career. I graduated from Moscow State University as a chemist, and then I started doing my postgraduate studies, was doing my PhD, thesis in molecular biology. And everything went as it was planned by myself and my parents. I was fairly successful in all the fields, but the emptiness inside at one point has become completely unbearable. I felt that my life is senseless. I was totally disillusioned with science, with the science as the human enterprise, as the idea of the science, because I felt so many fallacies in the initial premises of the science. The most important perhaps was that the human beings appeared on this earth by chance. I just couldn't buy to it, because it's it's too much chances should be taken. It's just the probability of something as complex as even a single living cell would appear by chance is just practically zero.
So you can say that science actually pushed you more forward?
In one sense, I started thinking, I started reading different philosophies, Plato and some other good philosophers. But again, in the Soviet Union and that atmosphere, the opportunities were less. And I remember for the first time I read New Testament, not the whole New Testament, just John's Gospel. Somebody gave it to me because it was prohibited. You couldn't really get this book freely, so somebody secretly gave me this book. And I remember this very strong feeling inside after reading this, that you should change something in your life, because there is some truth behind this book. But the problem was that I didn't know what to change. So after some time, this feeling, strong feeling which was there, that there is some truth behind this, it kind of vanished, disappeared. But then, at the moment of the most severe crisis in my life at that time, when I was 24 or so, when I just didn't understand where do I go, what is the meaning, what is the ultimate purpose of what I'm doing. I remember very clearly that I went out from my little room and I was crying. It was cold night, a winter night in Moscow. I was crying and praying to somebody, please give me some direction, I don't know what. And lo and behold, in a couple of days, my old friend from the university, came and gave me Bhagavad Gita. It was a small pre-revolution edition of Bhagavad Gita. I read this within a couple of nights, and I was so impressed, and exactly the same feeling appeared within my heart. After reading this book, you should change something in your life. But at this moment, my friend said that you should chant this little prayer, Hare Krishna mantra, and he said that you should follow some principles, you should be vegetarian. Of course, I was vegetarian already by that time, even though it was extremely difficult in Soviet Union because there was no vegetables. You could be vegetarian, but there was no vegetables. So some little rice was there and some, Greek, whatever. Anyway, so, what I was the most impressed from reading Bhagavad Gita, what struck me after reading this book is that this book provides a completely rational, intelligible, logical view of reality, which is completely different, 180 degrees different from the view of reality which I had before. Nevertheless, it was very logical and very complete in one sense. So I got in trouble at that point because from my upbringing I was trained as an atheist, and it was also very logical. There was a lot of data and proofs providing these ideas, and here I am wrestling with this completely different system which is totally opposite, which is totally incompatible with my previous ideas, but nevertheless very compelling. So for probably 1 year, if not more, this internal struggle went on in my heart. I was trying to...
Did you have someone around you with who you could have discussed it?
Not really. Not really. My friend lived in another city. Every now and then he would come, but there were some, initial people. He got me acquainted with some people who were doing this kind of Eastern spirituality, so to speak, Vedic way of life. But I mostly relied on my own intelligence, which I was programmed to do. So, and for some time there was this struggle inside. I was looking in the reality, and I was looking in the reality the way I used to look at it, and then all of a sudden, I would change my view, and I would look at the same reality from a different vantage point of view. And I was comparing which picture of reality is actually has more explanatory power. That's a term in science. If you give some theory which is supposed to explain the reality, it has to explain different aspects of reality, and the more aspects of reality explains, the more explanatory power is there in this theory, and the more compelling it is, the more accurate it probably is. So I was trying to figure out which concept would explain the reality better in its entirety. I knew that little pockets of reality can be very beautifully explained by science, but if we take the bigger picture, then there are so many questions which science doesn't have an answer, and the only answer which is there, sometime in the future we may have answer to this. And of course, perhaps the most important puzzle which I had before about the creation of a human being was looked differently and in a much more plausible way, in a much more reliable. The explanation which I found in Vedic literature, and I started reading some other books which are related to Bhagavad Gita and this philosophy, I got much more satisfactory answers. So that was more or less my journey. Of course, there was so many other details along the right.
Krishna consciousness came to your life?
Yeah, it came with this initial book of Bhagavad Gita and with mantra which I started chanting without even knowing who is Krishna, who is Hare, what is Rama, and why I'm chanting this. I decided to make an experiment because I'm a scientist, and scientists, they don't believe blindly in anything. They try to check, and I didn't have enough reasons to reject it from the outset. My friend said, try it, it may help you in many different ways. And I started trying it, and the first thing which I noticed is that I'm chanting again and again and again the same formula, but it doesn't become tedious. I'm not tired of doing this. On the contrary, sometimes I feel very elevated. My spirit got elevated by chanting this.
That scientifically?
Well, by that time I started reading different books which gave me some hints. And there were friends, there were devotees there in Russia who were doing some sort of scientific experiments. I wouldn't say that it was very rigorous scientific experiments, but at least they provided certain hints that there is some experimentally, empirically proven effects, positive effects of chanting mantra on the individual level, on the medical level, on the physical level, and on the level of society as well. So that also kind of helped me, but I think the most important push was this initial prayer, and obviously this book which was given to me in a dim lit corridor of my hostel was an answer to my prayer. I realized it very quickly and very clearly. It was very clear that you were praying for some direction, here is something, and try it. So I didn't want to miss my chance. I tried it, and 42 years later I'm still trying. And I never regretted that I did try.
Did you have a choice, do you think, not to take the path?
No, I don't think. Looking back, I cannot imagine myself doing anything else, because it completely fits my nature. I feel very satisfied. I feel very happy. Yeah, it was a logical development. Even though from the external point of view, from the point of view of my parents and grandparents, it was totally illogical. It was absurd. It was weird. But internally I did feel that there was some logical development in the way I lived, and I'm again.
Do you think we have a free will? Do we have a choice in our life?
Yes, we do, but it's very limited.
And limited to what?
We have intelligence, and because we have intelligence, by this intelligence we can judge whether this is good or whether this is bad. And this higher intelligence which we have is sometimes, oftentimes, is hindered by our emotional mind, which wants something else. The intelligence says this is good for you. The mind says no, this is too hard, this is too difficult. Take an easy path, take something which is immediately pleasing for you. So this struggle is there, and what we choose, whom we choose to hear, whether the mind who is telling us do something which is immediately pleasing to you, or the higher intelligence which says no, don't go for it, don't be tempted by this, do something which is more difficult but it will give you greater reward at the end of the day. So that's basically the freedom which we have. Mm-hmm. And by making these choices, we showing to God, who is in everyone's heart, what we really want. And if we make consistently choice, if we're trying to choose something which is for the higher benefit, for the higher, which gives the higher purpose in life, then He gives you all the opportunities to achieve this higher purpose. Whereas if you consistently make a choice to live pleasant, comfortable but meaningless life, He will also provide you with the opportunities to do this.
Until a certain point.
Yeah, when you become frustrated by this endeavor. Yeah.
Then there will be some work needs to be done.
But then it will be even more difficult. But anyway, the point is that I don't ascribe a lot of credit to my intelligence or to my, but there was something which probably is a credit of mine. I was somewhat sincere. I really wanted to find the purpose in my life, and this sincerity probably is the only thing which brought me where I am now.
Who is God?
He's a teenage boy, bluish in color, with big, beautiful eyes, smiling, very kind, playing with his friends and his parents and his girlfriends, and enjoying. That's the concept of God, which is there in Vedic literature, not everywhere in Vedic literature, but in some very secretive parts of Vedic literature, which describes this idea of God as a playful being, omniscient, all-powerful, but at the same time all-beautiful and all-merciful. So people sometimes, they present this one side of God. He is all-powerful and He's all-knowing and He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. Fine, fair enough. It's a good concept of God, but it's not everything about God, because if we only think about God as somebody who is super powerful, all-knowing, omnipresent, it's kind of, it's probably very boring to be such kind of person. So there is another side of God which is very sweet. He's merciful, He's kind, He's playful, He's humorous. and when we look at the reality, even in this material reality, which is a reflection, dim reflection of the spiritual reality, we can see both sides of this ultimate source of this reality. God is the ultimate source of everything which exists. He is the cause of creation, the cause of maintenance, and ultimately the cause of destruction. That's another definition of God, definitely. He is generator, operator, and destroyer. That's how you get the word God, G-O-D. But again, this is incomplete understanding or concept of God, because when we see the reality which is supposed to reflect His nature, because it's coming from Him, and because it's coming from Him, it is supposed to be similar to Him. It's supposed to, be like Him in one sense. We can see very powerful aspects of this reality. We can see amazing and mind-blowing aspects of this reality, but at the same time, we can see the beautiful aspects of this reality. And our heart is much more receptive to the beauty of reality than to this overpowering power of reality, than of this powerful concept. Therefore, even Nietzsche, who was not a believer, he said, I would believe in God who can dance. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to know about Krishna, who is dancing and playing flute and doing all kinds of mischiefs because of his original playful nature. And again, if we look deep inside our heart, we can also discover that this is our original nature. That's who we are. We are playful, happy, living entities, and the most engaging thing which we can do is to play. We can earn money, we can do so many things, but ultimately we just little playful children who are humorous and who are kind deep inside the heart. Everything else is external, superficial.
But why? Why are we coming here and we get into this?
Because the reason is very simple. Because we want to be independent on God and to imitate God in one sense. We want to enjoy independently of Him, and by enjoying independently of Him, we try to present ourselves as God. So this is very beautifully depicted in the Bible, in the story of Adam and Eve, where the snake, which is tempting them, is saying, please take these fruits from this tree which is growing, and by taking these fruits you will become like God. So this desire, this temptation to become like God, meaning to be completely independent, meaning to become very powerful and trying to exploit the resources of this nature, is the original sin, so to speak, which brought us here. The desire to enjoy independently on Him. God is very happy to enjoy with us, and when we are not really creating troubles. But when all these people who want to enjoy independently come to this world, it's no wonder that there is so much mess here, because everyone is trying to be God, and everyone is trying to enjoy independently, and everyone is trying to encroach in others' property and harm each other. So with this desire, as the downside of it, or as the opposite side of the coin, comes all the troubles and miseries which we experience here. And if we relinquish this desire and agree to live in harmony with God and creation and fulfill His will and take part in His pastimes, in His place, then the whole problem is solved. Otherwise we will go on with this endless cycle of cruelty and evil, and it's called karma, when we create something bad and we bear the bad consequences of these bad actions,
Which brings me to my last question. We're living right now through really hard times everywhere. It's not only Russia, Ukraine, there is economical crisis in Europe, America. So how to live through these times, how to live through this transformational time, I would say, how to stay sane, how to stay, not to take any of the sides, because each of those sides, they all have their own truth. How to choose your own path in all of this and not to become crazy.
It's very difficult to remain aloof from the society because we are dependent on the prevailing views in the society. We are very much programmed. We are by nature, we are programmed by the society, by propaganda, by the news. The only recipe of living through this difficult life is to have very strong set of internal values, one of which is compassion. Instead of taking sides in this very difficult time, side of one, we should develop the compassion, which is actually very close to our nature. It's actually a reflection of our inner nature. We are compassionate, empathic, living entities. And some people don't have this nature, but it can be developed because, again, it's natural. It's the nature of the soul to be compassionate. It's the nature of the soul to be friendly. It's the nature of the soul to be loving. If we establish our life on these values very firmly, then we will be somewhat immune to the infectious disease of envy and cruelty and lie and whatnot, which is coming upon us through this propaganda and through different channels and through association with such people. So, and of course, another advice which I can give is to have the association of like-minded people, because it will be very difficult to live these values in our life unless we have a support from the community of like-minded people who live the same values, who can give us moral support, emotional support. It's hard. World is very cruel, but if we are kind, then we will be naturally attracted to other kind people, and the other kind people will be attracted to us. And this kindness and beauty, which is again the ultimate reality, because ultimate reality, God, is beautiful, is compassionate, merciful. So if we develop this God-like nature, then definitely God will send us like-minded people who will help us to develop it even more. Like He sent to me this friend and Bhagavad Gita, and actually helped me in my inner journey. So that's my little advice in this very difficult situation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much,
Thank you.
Mr. Vijnana Goswami. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned. Have a great